Well, welcome to this, my 82nd LinkedIn Live broadcast, and I'm delighted to be joined by Joy Lewis. Joy set up a business called AAI. It's now called AAI EmployAbility. And we're going to be speaking about the subject of recruitment, inclusive recruitment in the 2020s. I can't believe it. I was just reflecting this morning that I've been recruiting people. This is now the 5th decade. I started on this in the 1980s. So we're going to have a real discussion about recruitment and just the direction that it's going in. So Joy, welcome to the studio, and could you begin by telling us a bit about yourself and your career before starting AAI EmployAbility?
Well, thank you, Andrew. It's lovely to be here. Thanks for the invite. Okay, so, my dad was in the RAF and I was actually born in Cyprus. We traveled a bit and I spent some formative years in Singapore as well as around the UK. I'm English, but spent my teens in the northeast of Scotland at a place called Lossiemouth, which has an RAF base. And I continued to be a bit of an itinerant even after that, because I joined the Foreign Office and traveled a fair bit with them too, living in Brazil, Argentina, and Germany. And I spent 20 years with the Foreign Office, all told. I was also a senior sales manager with a clothes company for several years. And I returned to Scotland in 2002, and this time to Edinburgh, where I am now, with my Scottish partner, Ian. I worked in marketing here a bit and in events a bit before joining a think tank. And the rest, as you know, Andrew, is history, but I'm going to clarify a little bit more about what I've just said there, because I think it's relevant to what we're going to go on to discuss. So I mentioned my father was in the RAF, but neither of my parents went to university, and nor did I. My dad joined the RAF at 16 as an engineer, and I'm very proud of my dad. And I had no choice but to get a job after going to a local college on a full bursary. And I explain this now as clearly this was key to my drive to create my social enterprise, Adopt an Intern. But weirdly enough, I only realized it a few years ago. So there we are.
Okay, well, quite a wide-ranging and interesting and diverse career background, Joy. Now, you started the business Adopt an Intern in 2009. Well, I can remember 2009, it was in the teeth of the recession, the last recession that we were in. So what led up to starting the business and what challenges did you face?
Okay, so I was working in this think tank and they were using unpaid interns. And there was something about this that didn't sit well with me. And I could see that some were being looked after by mum and dad, but others were working in bars at night to pay the rent. And I guess it just didn't seem fair to me. And I didn't realize why, but now on reflection, I see why. So I became very aware of all the other talented graduates out there who perhaps couldn't entertain working for nothing. So Adopt an Intern was born, firstly as a project and then as a social enterprise, which I later span out from the think tank in 2012. So I started by placing most of their unpaid interns into paid work. But the think tank was so supportive of what I was doing, and I couldn't have done it without them, especially the head of the think tank, who is still very much a mentor to me and sits as an advisor on the AAI board. So thanks to Ross. But as far as obstacles goes, oh my goodness, well, there were so many. I mean, I didn't have a recruitment background, as you've just heard. I was just kind of feeling my way around. And I remember just calling up all the university switchboards and making friends with all the receptionists just to find out who I should be talking to. And one, I remember, even introduced me to her son-in-law because he was he'd just done a journalist degree, journalism degree, and was couldn't get a job and was very depressed. And I said, yes, I'll help. I'll try and help. But he became the first person I placed into an official internship. And I'm still in touch with him to this day. So what else? Other obstacles? Well, of course, there was a crisis on. You know, I didn't know if employers would even consider paying graduate wages at that stage. But I found out that they were happy to pay wages. And I went to Scottish Government and they agreed to fund a pilot. And that led to 7 years of funding. And then after that, we headed off into the world of sustainability, where we now charge for our services. So businesses came to us with a need, whether looking for an intern or a whole program, an internship program, and they paid the wages whilst government paid us. And now they pay the wages and a very small one-off fee to cover our overheads.
Very good. So a changing business model there, but one that has adapted very well. Now, another change that came about was the actual name. So Adopt an Intern was, you know, quite a well-known brand, but just in recent years, you've changed it to AAI EmployAbility. So what was the kind of decision-making or thinking behind making that change?
Yes, well, we've now worked with over 1,000 businesses and we've placed 1,800 unemployed or underemployed job seekers into paid work. And we attract the attention of all kinds of different employers, from startups to corporates and public and private sectors. So why now, you know, why try to trade under a different name? Well, firstly, some changes were needed because A, we'd become sustainable through charging for our services, and B, we're a social enterprise as opposed to a charity, which is what Adopt an Intern sounds like. So we were causing some confusion there. And also, because we were recruiting through open and transparent methods and had gained a reputation with graduates as a supportive social enterprise, we noticed that we were attracting more and more diversity. And this led to lots of comments from employers saying, wow, look at the diversity in this shortlist, never seen this before. And we were being asked to do diversity and inclusion workshops using case studies, as well as involving the people that we were, for marginalized groups that we were working with. So there was another string to our bow. And those workshops then led to us developing various social impact projects for businesses so that they could undertake them as part of their own CSR. And the projects were all around jobs and local communities, and a real win-win for all concerned. And that in turn led to us being able to support bids and tenders, as you know, Andrew, so we can be part of the community benefits section of a tender. So the new name, AAI EmployAbility, reflects our recruitment work, plus the branching out we've done around diversity and inclusion. And it also reflects our more open language that we're using, which is aimed at encouraging employers to think about non-graduates as well as returners, because we've never had an age limit to what we do and who we attract. And I think another key thing is this word internship. We now use the word placements. So I'd love to know what people think of the word internship, how they visualize an internship. But to avoid the doubt that exists in people's minds even today, what is actually an internship? Our decision was also based on this. So for some, an internship might be a 3-week unpaid shadowing exercise. And for others, it simply means exploitation. And for some, it's just for students. Young students still at work, part-time job, it's an internship. So many employers were self-deselecting from our services because of their own beliefs about the word internship. So placements is what we say now. And we also now advertise permanent roles because it means getting more people into work, and we're happy about that. But I would say that placements offer a risk-free way for both an employer and an employee to get to know each other. So I'm still very, very fond of promoting placements. So I hope that that explains why we changed our name, or we now trade under AAI EmployAbility, or please just call us AAI.
Yeah, very good, Joy. A really comprehensive answer to that. And I can see that now the reasons why that name change has happened. And thanks also for calling out the help that you can give around bidding and tendering, because the community benefits, as they're called in Scotland, or social value as they tend to be called in the rest of the UK, that is quite a big factor, particularly around public sector bids. And there is a lot that AAI can do to assist bidders in developing their propositions, their social value offerings. Recruitment, inclusive recruitment, we're going to be talking about in this interview. So it might be helpful if you could define, what does it mean to you, first of all, inclusive recruitment? What does it mean to employers, and what does it mean to graduates?
Okay, so for me personally, inclusive recruitment is about encouraging employers to, for example, not just go to the local university or go to their opinion of the best university, or to just advertise on LinkedIn, or some just use their own website. What I want them to do is to take some time and look as far and wide as they can, and as deep a reach as they can, or save some time and use a company like AAI to do that reach for them. Only that way will they reach the underrepresented communities who are equally talented, but don't have the networks or the contacts, and they don't have that leg up that they need to make it a level playing field. So I'm going to go on to the job seeker next, I think. Very briefly, this is an easier one for me. It's important because no matter what their economic background, or their ethnicity, or their beliefs, or their disabilities, that they get a fair hearing, a fair and open opportunity to apply for every job on the market. So it has to be a level playing field, and I guess that's what I've been fighting for them for 11 years now. But businesses, yes. Why is this important to them? There's a really strong business case showing that diversity of thought, different views and ideas and creative thinking will support business growth and even business survival, which is quite key right now. But I've got some great stats for you. Businesses in the top quarter of companies with the highest racial diversity are 36% more likely to experience higher profit than their competitors. And businesses in the same bracket with high gender diversity are 25% more likely to experience higher profit than their competitors. So although these figures predate the pandemic, we all know that the pandemic has only widened the divide for underrepresented groups, and that inclusion and diversity matter more than ever. So I would say, please don't hold off on your diversity agenda. Get ahead of the game and make sure you're reaching diverse audiences. So I think my top tips here would be to cast a wide net to ensure inclusion, and use things like gender analysis software to check that your language is as inclusive as it could be. How's that?
Yeah, very good, and great to hear even the economic case for having the diverse workforce. It actually makes sense to the company's bottom line, as well as on so many other helpful levels. Now, Joy, how do today's graduates or job seekers, how do they differ from the ones that you worked with when you first started your business 12 years ago?
Yeah, good question. Well, they're certainly a lot more aware of the importance of social impact, that profit for good. They kind of want to base their choice of employer on the good that that employer, that company does for the community, and all the planet. It's for them, it's just no longer just about money. They're also really aware of the importance of inclusion. They're more accepting of differences than most other generations. And as you know, they are also much more digitally savvy. They know that they should be building a brand online. So, for example, in 2009, Facebook was only about 4 years old, and people were only really concerned about what their friends were up to, their relationship status. But now there is a huge opportunity to shape how they want to be seen in the world, and they can create their whole persona and build this massive professional network on LinkedIn before they even leave university. So these platforms are amazing, and they've also brought greater access to jobs. So fantastic. I think going forward, resilience is going to be key, because remote work after the pandemic will forever change the world of working, and new graduates are going to have to navigate all the pros and cons of that. And it is a whole new world, as we know. And for some, it will be wonderful, and for others, not so. So I look forward to seeing what happens.
Okay, now we're getting the Generation Zers, the people that were born maybe the late 90s or the early 2000s. They are now very much coming into the workplace. What are they looking for in their employer organizations?
Yeah, well, I suspect that all generations want some of the same things. So I'm just thinking here about what the Generation Z, how does they differ from, say, the millennials and other Gen X? But I think they want a boss who's a listener. They want someone who understands the importance of work-life balance, and they kind of want them to lead by example as well. I'm kind of learning this myself now. This is an interesting take. They want to know you are trying to have a positive social impact on society too. That's really important for them. I think an interesting thing is the kind of perks that they want. Something like access to a gym, for example, because they're extremely aware of the importance of mental health. They want things that they can use immediately. So you will all have heard Gen Z talking about mental health. It's a big thing for them. So the lure of a good pension isn't as strong because they can't use it immediately to help them with their day-to-day work. Whereas the gym is going to help them feel good. It's going to help them do their work. They want a boss who will give them freedom to show their worth as well. That doesn't change. They still want to be inspired and empowered. So there's a lot for employers to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I find that they want development as well. They want development opportunities. That sort of counts a lot with them as well, wanting to make sure that they are actually developing and not just doing. I don't think people are content now to maybe do the same job, or most people aren't content to do the same job for 5, 10, 20 years. They really want variety. Things have to change a bit for them. Now, the younger millennials, and I'd probably put the people here I'm talking about even up towards the mid-30s in kind of age, I've noticed that they do tend to be what I would call job hoppers, that quite a lot of them look to move on every 12 to 18 months. It was illustrated to me by one of our members of our team a few years ago, and he left after 18 months. And then I actually met somebody that knew him, and they said, oh, he'd been with you for ages. And I said, it was only 18 months. And they said, oh, it seemed like he'd been there for ages, so you could understand him moving on. So yeah, many do look to move on, every 12 to 18 months. What can convince them to stay longer with employers?
Interesting. Well, that's an interesting story you tell there. And you also mentioned that Gen Z is very keen on learning and growing. Well, I think the reason I didn't mention them in that particular question here, because millennials are actually, more than any other generation, they are the one that want to learn and grow. So yes, Gen Z do, but the millennials are the ones that really, this is really important to them. And they want to do really well in their careers. And the reason for this is cited that it's due to the peer pressure they had on social media channels. Now, who actually knows the story behind it? But it could be, it really could be. So for them, clarity of promotion is key. But for millennials, that could be a vertical promotion or a horizontal promotion. So, you know, there's a lot of flexibility there for an employer. Now, they also want, clearly, they want flexibility, they want mentoring opportunities, they like volunteering opportunities. All this can motivate a millennial to stay longer. I think for me, though, it's mainly about offering a clear vision of their future. So, I mean, this is harder in a small company, so imagination is needed. So we need to find out what motivates them. You know, is it money? Is it responsibility? Or is it purely making a difference, which for many it is. So we need to give them an aim. And this can be done through projects, for example. I find they need to know where they're going and what they're aiming for. Very briefly too, I think transparency is important, because millennials more than others are very insecure about their job. And if there is any insecurity, they will jump ship. So being open and transparent with them about how the company is doing and keeping staff informed and avoiding that insecurity is very important. So one of the top tips I give to employers who are taking on interns is, don't wait for the 3 or 4 months to be over before you talk to them about that future, because they will be looking for a job before the end of that internship. So you need to be open with them. How are they doing? What's the likelihood of them staying on? All that said, Andrew, my top tip here is let them go if they want to go. Let them fly and try other things. As I always say to employers, don't be afraid to let them go, because they will be fantastic ambassadors for you and may well come back one day, and you'll benefit from another employer's training. So enjoy them while they're there, because they can make a vast difference to your company.
Good. Well, you've made some great points, and a lot of them resonate for me. I know at AAI we have a monthly team meeting, and we take everybody even through our financial figures and projections. So everything is out in the open, really. And I think that all of the workforce appreciate that, but probably, as you say, Joy, especially those in the younger age groups, we're of an age group at one time when we were more junior, we didn't know anything about these things. These were all done at sort of higher levels, let's say. But it's a different world now, and we've got to embrace that. We've spoken about what the job seekers are looking for. If we can flip it round, employers, what are they looking for when recruiting graduates and young job seekers?
Well, that's a tough question, because I think everyone listening today is going to have their own views, and there's some clear ones. You recruit for attitude, strong communication skills, you want problem solvers, team players, you need organizational skills, confidence, etc. All this is a given. But my suggestion here is to simply hire for potential. You talked about retention. Hiring for potential, these are the candidates that are going to stick around the longest, because you've shown faith in them. Now, I'm not saying this always works, but certainly in my experience, it does. Employers often want a skill set that's useful to them, like sales skills. But many early graduates may not have the experience despite having potential. So there's a catch-22 still here even today. And I'd like to see more job adverts saying any degree background can apply, or you don't have to have a degree as long as you've got the skills to do the job. Just show us you have the enthusiasm to learn and bring your ideas with you. That's where I think you're going to get more diversity, more talent, And yes, you may need to train them, you may need to spend time with them, but the longevity of their work with you will outweigh any drawbacks. And I think the other thing that I've noticed over the years that keeps rearing its head is employers saying that they want someone who's work ready. Now, for new graduates, that can be very hard. There's another catch-22 situation there, isn't there? And I know that universities are beginning to work on this, and they're doing a good job. But it's not really enough. We need more. So AAI, we've been aware of this for a long time, and we're now offering employers the opportunity to improve that work readiness by a few very brief and fun courses that we've prepared in-house based on our understanding of the issue. And I'd like to think that this could take the strain off a company's resources and overcome this issue of those lack of soft skills on entering the workforce. Does that make sense?
Oh, it does, absolutely. And around this work readiness piece, I think it sounds like you've got an offering there that employers would likely be interested in. There are some fabulous young job seekers out there. We've taken one on through the Kickstart scheme, a young guy who had applied for over 200 jobs, been for 10 interviews, and actually was starting to feel really anxious about his prospects. And we just tried to make the whole recruitment process as easy for him as possible, and welcomed him into our business. And he's now completed 4 months. He's been, told that he's going to get a permanent job at the end of it. And yeah, his enthusiasm for work has been great. The whole team have loved it. And we've just been told a couple of weeks ago that we have got permission to recruit a further 2 Kickstart scheme young job seekers. So we're just going to be starting the recruitment for that in the next week or 2. So yeah, exciting things happening. Next question is around, of course, the pandemic has just altered everything, particularly around location of the workplace. And as we do this interview towards the end of June 2021, it's still official UK and Scottish Government advice that you work from home if you are able to do so. And it may be still a month or 2 perhaps away from that changing. What are you finding, Joy, in terms of the office versus a hybrid or indeed completely home or remote working model? Now, do most recent graduates and young job seekers want the option of working within an office environment?
Yes, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I'm just going to go back a bit to your Kickstart, because we've taken on a couple as well, and it works really well, doesn't it? And it's such a wonderful opportunity for them. And AAI is acting as a gateway, so we've been able to support a lot of employers with that, and it's just wonderful. But they are having to work remotely, so this is a very key question here. And I am a bit biased, as I've been working remotely for 19 years from my home office, and since 2009, I've managed the AAI team through about 40 hires, including 25 internships or placements. And everyone has worked from home, and we've never had an office. But now that we've all of us had to embrace remote working, we've all experienced both pros and cons, haven't we? So, like for one of my team, she's quite new to us and she fatigues easily. And she's found that not commuting to work or even meetings enables her to work longer. So we benefit. And she really benefits. And I know of other disabled people who've been able to do jobs from home that they wouldn't otherwise be able to do. They wouldn't be able to work full stop, but because they can now work from home, win-win. But of course, there's a downside, and one of my team doesn't want to move from her desk. We have to force her to go for a walk. And so whether you have introverts or extroverts in your team, you have to monitor both and encourage them to take breaks and holidays and get outside to exercise. And it's not for everyone. There have been reports that young and single people want to return to the office for the social aspect, and I get that. And I have hired people who've struggled with remote work. Like everything in life, everyone has different preferences. So new graduates, however, will have studied remotely in cafes and libraries. But there's a lot to be said about starting your career surrounded by the professionals and enjoying that social aspect of life. And it's a nice wind down. It's a good work-life balance. So my suggestion is simply to do what we've done, or try to do, is to be proactive in asking what your team want and offer them both remote and flexible options. Now, I can't offer them a workplace, but I can offer them places to go and work and be with people. New employers, they don't actually know, new employees, sorry, don't actually know where and how they work best until they've had the experience and they've tried out both options. So I suggest an open mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you said, listening to your people, is so important, taking action as needed, and recognizing that this is a developing situation. It could well be that the workplace in 2030 will be very different to what it is at the moment, even. But certainly I've done both over the years, spent more time in offices than I have at home, but I'm really enjoying working from home at the moment. But I also recognise that there's a need for me to impart, some knowledge and skills to some of my younger colleagues. And it doesn't have to be within an office. It can be done virtually as well, but some of it is going to be within an office. Now, I'm going to ask you a couple of top threes, Joyce.
Okay.
Joyce, what are the top 3 things that employers can do to improve their attractiveness to graduates?
Good question. Okay. So they need to, I suggest, look at their websites and get some diversity onto their websites. Yeah, definitely. That is key. Show their interest in and highlight their work on social projects or local communities, the environment, etc. Whatever it is they're doing, whether big or small, to get it out to the onto their website, to get it out to the audience. And thirdly, I think to advertise more widely, as I've said before, or even better, to come to an experienced organization who can show off the company best, get their best traits out there. I have to say here, because my marketing lead will kill me if I don't, but we do have a huge regenerating audience of talented graduates looking to run with new opportunities. So there we are, 3 top things that employers can do to improve their attractiveness to graduates.
Okay, some great hints there. And could we flip it? What are the 3 things that graduates, job seekers, what can they do to make themselves more employable?
Well, from the simple ones, like get help with your application, go online and use those wonderful tools that are out there now, learn how to best sell yourself. They also need to identify their transferable skills. This is key in today's life now. What are your transferable skills? What can you take with you into another job, into your first job? And look out for learning opportunities to fill any of the gaps that you might have. And finally, we have the phenomena that is LinkedIn. Young people should be, and probably are, but they should be definitely creating a personal brand. They can get in the conversation, they can get themselves out there, and it's totally free to make what they can of it. So I think my only suggestion there is to get a sensible picture on LinkedIn, and we've all seen some surprising ones. So a good picture, and get your personal brand sorted.
Yes, some good hints again there. And I think the employers as well, them getting their personal brand out there is good too, because people want to know not just about the business, but about the leaders of the business and kind of what their values are and what their vision is and what their knowledge is or whatever. So I've certainly found that, getting myself out there, as it were, across LinkedIn has definitely helped in recruitment, both of people to come and work with us, but also in the other important point of recruiting new clients as well, which is the subject of, let's say, a whole other interview. AAI Employability, you've won awards for promoting inclusivity within recruitment. Which groups of society would you say, Joy, are currently the kind of most marginalised?
Yes, okay. So, you know, COVID kind of leveled the playing field in some areas of life, but in others it has widened it. So disabled people continue to have the lowest employment rate, followed by the minority ethnic people. Followed by minority ethnic people. But if we look at the most marginalised groups, and they include women, elderly people, disabled people, refugees, migrants, minorities, because they are all subject to socio-economic marginalisation. And it takes me back to why I started AAI, concentrating on supporting graduates from low socioeconomic backgrounds who needed to be paid for their work, and we ended up attracting the most amazing amount of diversity. So that's why. So these groups are reliant on the informal economy, have less access to social services and technology. But to top it all, they are more prone to COVID-19. But we have to think about all the hidden talent that is in these groups. So the pandemic has definitely set the gender equality back 10 years. Definitely. I think my top tip here would be to ask you employers to think about this question. Does your job, or any jobs that you want to advertise, do they really need to have a degree? And if they don't, then you could attract more talented diversity, but you could also be supporting these marginalized groups. So that's my top tip for attracting diversity and supporting people too.
Yeah, so it's really all around taking away some of the barriers that could exist and trying to sort of either remove the barrier or at least lower it a bit to make it more easy for people to feel that they can apply and be successful in going for jobs. Now, I'm sure, Joy, with all the, I can't remember the exact figure, but it was well over 1,000 that you mentioned that you've placed over the years into, either sort of placement opportunities or, permanent roles. You will have some heroine or some hero stories out there. So just tell us one, somebody maybe from a marginalised background who has really progressed within their career.
Oh, that is so hard to do, Andrew. So yes, 1,800. I'm very proud of that. People placed into paid work. So let me tell you about, well, I can't narrow it down, but briefly, Ruvini, I pulled her out from behind a coffee machine where she was serving coffee, and I took her upstairs to where we were having a diversity and inclusion workshop and introduced her to some employers, including Diageo and Mercer. And their comment was, oh my goodness, why are you working downstairs in the coffee shop when you have an engineering degree? We managed to empower Rubini, and she got an internship through us and has now got herself another job and is now fully employed, and we're so proud of her. And then Reham, another minority ethnic woman who came to us workshop saying, I can't get a job. And we said, but look at the skills you've got. You should be doing this yourself. You should be self-employed. She now runs her own company called Transform You Now, supporting other minority ethnic people and a wider group of diversity around resilience. And she also acts as one of our contractors. So brilliant story there. And then Viana, similar story, came to one of our workshops, amazing woman, got one of our internships, and now runs her own company called Prespect, supporting minority ethnic people by upskilling them before they get work. So I'm really proud of these people and many more. And we've simply included them and given them an opportunity, and they've run with it.
Yeah, well, do you know what? You've probably got 1,800 stories there, because probably everybody's got a story of how getting a job has helped them, because it definitely does. Now, Joy, you and I first met about 5 years ago. We're both members of the Scottish Business Network. And I just wanted to ask you, how has membership of the network helped you and your business?
Well, the founders, Russell and Christine, call me a founding member, which I find very flattering, because I feel I always knew it was going to be a really successful networking organization. And you won't be surprised to hear that I'd placed, or we, my team, had placed several graduates into various of Russell's previous ventures. And we also placed a graduate into SBN in their formative years to help them get their website up and running. So I already had a feel for it. And I've been a proud member ever since, watching it and them grow into this amazing and supportive company. So I've benefited, we've benefited personally. I've benefited personally because I've made some great friendships. And of course, the business has benefited because we've made some very good business contacts, relationships. And from that has come some really good repeat business. So I can't recommend SBN highly enough.
Yeah, absolutely. I would completely echo that. And in fact, on Friday, I'm interviewing a person that we both know well, Fraser Allen, and we're going to be talking about building brands through storytelling. And I'm interviewing him at 9:30 in the morning on Friday. But finally, Joy, I'd like to ask you, what's your vision for your business?
Well, it's actually very simple. We want to see a world where there is equality of opportunity around employment for everyone. And we'll keep working on ways to achieve that. Simple as that, Andrew.
Okay, and we've had a few comments and one or two questions put in. There's just one I'd like to pull out, and it's somebody who's asked a question about, you know, are you seeing evidence that the young people now who are looking for jobs, are they looking for a single secure income, or are they perhaps looking for something that's a bit more portfolio, which is maybe multiple streams of income, either a few different part-time jobs or a bit of self-employment and a bit of employment? And how, you know, if that's the case for some, how would that play out with, you know, employers, because that might not be quite as popular with employers, but then maybe it would be.
Well, that's a very good question. Thank you for that. So the answer is there's a bit of both coming in, and I encourage employers when they're writing their adverts to remember that. So if they need someone permanent, then that's fine, they can say that. But if they have a job that could be flexible and might attract someone with a portfolio career who wants or needs a portfolio career, then make sure that's in your advert, because you will then attract those people. So they're there, they do want a flexibility. Now, that portfolio career might be for various reasons. It might be because they have a family that they need to work around and they want to therefore just do some consultancy work or work part-time. Or they might generally have lots of things that they want to do in their lives. So we can facilitate that. And I think that is the way the world may well go as time goes on. There's a theory going around that we're all going to be doing that soon. But if you find there are also people out there who want permanent jobs, and again, that's to do with their background. And that might be because they are either single or they've got a family to bring up, but they want security, they need security, and a portfolio career does not agree with them. And that's, you know, probably going to always be the case for a long time to come. So we, the employer, need to cater for both of them and be as flexible and open to this talent as we can. I hope that answers your question.
It does, and do you know what? I think it's a great message around flexibility, around casting your net as wide as you can to try and attract as many different job seekers as possible, and from that pool you will identify a good match for your business. So thank you very much for coming into our LinkedIn Live studio today, Joy, and I look forward to meeting up with you again, both virtual and in-person events as well when these come back, which they surely will quite soon. Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Andrew. Thank you.